This tutorial will walk you through setting up the Quake 3 Arena GPL so that it is both easily compiled and handled by version control. The tutorial will also walk you through setting it up so that you can create a wide variety of mods and use a key press to load up any mod you want to with no additional software. We'll also show you how to connect to a debug server so that if you're debugging your source code, you can join the server with other players and you can do that in separate instances of Quake. Arguably most important part of getting this to work is owning a copy of Quake 3. Before we start, we need to make sure that we have the correct version of Quake 3 in order to get the GPL code to actually work with the executable. So what you need to do is go into your root directory, double click quake3.exe, and on the top left of your keyboard next to the button number 1, click or press the tilde key. And in this corner you will see the Quake 3 1.32, or anything less, it just tells you which version you have. So if you have anything less than 1.32, then what you need to do is go to the moddb page linked in the description and download the update. After applying the update, you should be all set to start modding. So the first thing you really need to do after having Quake 3 installed on your computer is go to the Quake 3 Arena directory. For me, I generally install it to the root directory of the drive. So I have my computer right here and I have the drive right there, and Quake 3 is in that directory. The next thing you're going to want to do is go and get the source code. The full source code, not the mod code that only has games, cgame, and Q3UI. You want the whole entire code. So what you want to do is go to the GitHub URL that's in the description and open up a new instance of whatever browser. And then go to the URL. Takes you to the Quake 3 Arena source code released by id Software. All you really need to do is download it and save it to your desktop to acquire it. Actually, you can save it anywhere, but your desktop is probably the most convenient spot. Okay, so it's been installed. It's on my desktop. Open it. Open the zip file and drag Quake 3 Arena master over to the Quake 3 directory. Here it is. This is the Quake 3 Arena source code. What you're going to want to do as well as having it set up in your directory is create a backup of the code somewhere so you can back this up in another completely different directory, so that if you need the full thing, you don't have to go and download it again in case you're stuck without internet for a span of time and you need to have a backup. The other thing you're going to want to do is, if you plan on modding just the regular code, whether it be the renderer or the local gameplay information, what you should do is make a copy of the code file. Right click the code, copy, paste, and rename it to whatever your mod is going to be. So the next thing we want to do is set up your development environment so that you can load Quake 3 executable and all the DLLs that come with the game and debug them while you're editing them. So you would be able to edit your code and apply it to the game as you're running through it. Even if you have other players running through it, you would be able to edit it at the same time. So go to code, go to your code folder, scroll down to the solution file. Here it says quake3.sln. This is where all your projects are kind of packed into so that they can be manipulated, edited, compiled at the same time. I'm going to click this, open it up, solution. And if your version of Visual Studio is different from the one that it used to create the game, it will prompt you to convert it. What you want to do is click next. You don't have to make a backup since we already have a backup. You can just change that to no and then click next again and finish. It will start converting all the files to whichever version of Visual Studio that you have. For me, I'm using Visual Studio 10. Since id Software used source control for their Quake 3 arena setup, what you want to do is remove that since we don't have access to whichever servers they were using for source control, nor want to have access to that. It's integrated into Visual Studio apparently, but you want to permanently detach all bindings so that you don't get any kind of error in the future or the game doesn't anticipate that you're using it. So change that to temporarily work uncontrolled to permanently remove source control. Click OK. You don't really need to see the, well, actually, let's see what happens. Okay, so it was successful for all modules. Everything's working fine, so just skip that. Okay, so now we're ready to start setting up the game so that the Visual Studio IDE sends all the necessary files to the right locations. Here you go, here you have your integrated development environment. You want to, first of all, what you want to do is set Quake 3, right click it. This is the actual Quake 3 EXE project. Right click it and set it to the startup project. For whatever reason it's set to splines by default. You don't want that. You want to go up to where it says debug. Click it. Make sure, well actually it's going to say debug TA or something like that. Click it, make sure it's set to debug or release. Scroll down to configuration manager. Make sure all of these are checked. In debug mode, for whatever reason, none of these are checked by default. Okay. The reason you want it all checked is because we're going to need to compile everything, and if you uncheck those boxes, the compiler skips those projects. Okay. So, Quake 3 has 3 modules that are quite similar in how they are shipped with the game. It's CGame, Game, and Q3 UI. All the other modules, BotLib, Renderer, Splines, UI, and Quake 3 are different in that all of them except Quake 3 are libraries. So Quake 3 needs these 4 files to compile, but it's not a dynamically linked library like CGame, Game, and Q3 UI. So what we should do for CGame, Game, and Q3 UI is modify some properties that they have so that we can have their files sent to directories, sent to your mod directory so you can debug the game, debug whichever mod you're working on. So right click CGame, scroll down to properties, Okay. What you want to do initially is, first let's go to debugging under configuration properties. Click debugging and change command to cgame x86.dll. Change working directory. Even if you don't have this directory, change it to whichever directory your Quake 3 folder is. So the mod we want to create is, you can name it whatever you like. On my end, I'm going to name it Aliens and Lasers. I'm going to use an acronym, ANL, because we're going to have to type it so many times, most likely, or copy paste it so many times. I don't want to make it long and complicated. So I'm going to take the directory URL from the bar over here. You can retrieve it however you would like, and I'm just going to paste it into working directory over here. So where it says working directory, it's going to be the directory to the mod folder. So the mod folder is in the Quake 3 base directory, next to base Q3, where all the actual pack files for the game are located, and the mod that I'm going to create is going to be alongside that. And that's the URL, or that's the address we're going to use for most of the directories that we're setting up over here. So set it to that mod folder, whatever yours may be, and we need to do the same thing for game and Q3 UI. Luckily, we can copy the content into multiple projects at the same time. We don't have to edit everything repeatedly. So what you can do is click Q3 UI, click game, go over to debugging, working directory, change it. So you change game and Q3 UI at the same time. But for the actual, for other properties, you're going to want to change them separately. Change command for game to QA game x86.dll. For Q3 UI, it will be UI x86.dll. For cgame, it is cgame x86.dll. We didn't edit general yet, so let's do that now. Configuration properties, general. Click that. Output directory, it's going to be your mod directory. For game, cgame and Q3 UI, it's going to be the same thing. So you can select all three using shift and change, paste it in, and what we're going to have to do is add the actual DLL for the three files, or for the three projects. So click cgame up here and then click yes to apply the code changes. Cgame target, where it says target name, change that to cgame x86. And you don't have to put .dll because we already have target extension down here. For game, it's the same thing. Change it to QAGAME x86. For Q3 UI, what you want to do is change it to UI x86. Well, again, you don't need the dot. So for cgame, game, and Q3 UI, all those pieces of information are set. You're going to want to next go down to C, C++, and make sure for all the projects, here I'm going to select UI at the bottom here, and shift click up to botlib. Just make sure every single one of them has this set, program database for edit and continue. If you don't have that set up, you're not going to be able to edit the game while you are playing it. or while you have it loaded up. You're not exactly going to be playing really. Next thing is actually linker general. Where it says output file, what you're going to want to do is change that to the mod directory and change the DLL file to the name of the correct file if it's not already there. So output file, insert the mod directory for it, game, do the same thing. The DLL name is correct, so you need to change that. Q3UI, do the same thing. Okay, so I've noticed one of the settings is not set correctly for all three of these, and it is enable incremental linking. You want to set that to yes for all the projects. Well, for the libraries, it's not going to give you the option to use change linking properties, since that's not what happens with the libraries. So you're going to go to Quake 3 UI and shift click out to Cgame and go down to linker, debugging, general, and change enable incremental linking to yes. Click apply. Okay, input, manifest, files, debugging. You want to change debugging as well. For Cgame, again, just change the directory to your mod directory for generate program database file. Do the same thing for game and QA game and Q3UI. Okay, click apply again. Important thing to mention about the linker is that when you're outputting your files from the linker general output file field, they need to be in your mod folder, or else they will be dumped somewhere incorrect and your mod will not be able to locate the new change DLL. The mod should still be able to work, but it's going to run off the DLLs from the default game. So your mod's not going to be working, but you're going to take a while to figure out why. So make sure that these DLLs get deposited in your mod folder, whatever that may be. So make sure it's the same for all game modules, game, Cgame, and Q3UI. Next is modifying the Quake 3 exe so that it loads everything properly and it can be set for debugging. First, go to General, change the output directory to the Quake 3 folder. This is not the same folder as the mod folder, this is just the Quake 3 folder. So change it to the Quake 3 root directory. Change target name to quake3.exe. Go over to debugging, command, change command to quake3.exe. Working directory, change working directory to the Quake 3 root directory. For command arguments, this is something you're going to want to change. I have in the description a list of command arguments that are really useful, but the most important of those that you need to change are, the most important one specifically that you need to change is, let's see, it's a console command, fs_game. You need to change that command argument to whatever your mod is. So over here, there is a whole list of commands inserted one after the other. Set svpure to 0, vmgame to 0, cgame to 0, and you have to set the the game to the name of whatever directory your mod's in. So mine is ANL, of course, for the name of my mod, Aliens and Lasers. After that is game type set to 0, cheats, all this other information that's really useful for just loading up the game with all weapons and items. So copy that from the description of the video and paste it into command arguments. Click apply. Go down to C++, edit and continue to set. Go down to, let's see, linker. Change linker general, change this to D. Change this to your Quake 3 root directory. Okay, so after that, enable incremental linking, yes. Let's see, general, input, debugging. I want to change this to Quake 3 root directory as well. The map file, yes, you want to change that as well. And after that, you should be all set. Let's hit OK. And go to debug, start debugging. It should load up Quake 3. Let's see if I can actually get the code to change while I'm running. So I'm going to do something simple. Solution navigator. Let's see. Go over to game. So I've loaded up a pretty simple portion of the code. Well, Q3, okay, so it's not loading. It's not loading. Code database. Okay. So after all those settings are configured, what you're going to want to do is click build, rebuild solution. That rebuilds all the code so that the PDB files, which are critical, are placed in the correct directories. So it said 4 succeeded, 4 failed. Sometimes, for whatever reason, I'm not entirely sure why it is, but you have to build it twice. I'm pretty certain it's because of dependencies. One portion of the game needs the other portion to be already built for it to properly compile. So you need to build it twice to get the other part compiled as well. I might be wrong, but that's what it seems like to me. So go to debug again, click start debugging. I'm going to check here and see that the DLLs were loaded. So you have Quake 3 UI x86 loaded, Cgame x86 has been loaded, QA game x86. So these are all loaded, and let's go to G weapons, and try to change something. See if we can change something and get it to reflect in the game immediately. Calc muzzle point origin. Muzzle point. Okay, let's just count this out. Let's see what happens. Nothing. Oh, that's because I didn't apply code changes. Okay, so 100, 100. Apply code changes. Wonderful. Now the rocket is offset in a really weird way. So I just went to this function called calc muzzle point origin, and what I did quickly was I just copied this line of code multiple times, and I changed what information was being sent to this function. Instead of it being sent forward to all three, I changed one to right and one to up. That just offsets the direction that this vector is being multiplied in. And after I did that, I went to build, well, I went to debug and clicked apply code changes, Control-Shift-A for me, and basically it just offset this in a really ridiculous way. Awesome. The last step in making this development process as easy as possible is setting up a shortcut to the Quake 3 executable that would have a few command line options granting you the ability to connect to a debug server using multiple instances of Quake. So the first step in doing that would be to go to your Quake root directory, right-click the executable, go down to Create Shortcut, place a shortcut wherever you'd like, go to the description in this video, and copy the line that says Quake 3 target. Copy all the command line options you see there. Go back to the shortcut, right click it, properties, where it says target, after the executable, paste the command line options. Click OK. Load up Visual Studio and start debugging. So as you can see, the game loaded up perfectly fine with the debug options, with the command line options that we set in the Quake 3 properties window. So now it's time to check if our command line options on the shortcut file will work. So it works. The next thing we want to do is set up the executable shortcut so that we can load up instances of the mod with just a key press. Right click on the shortcut, click Properties. Under where it says Shortcut Key, change it to any shortcut you would like. I like Control F2. Press OK. And now you can load up the mod just by pressing Control F2.